Coming down Five Oaks toward, headed toward Cat Lake. Our first stop is the garden, our community garden here at Harmony. And it's right on top. We use this road, which is on top of the gas pipeline, as an access point. There's a little interpretive sign here. Whoops. That we'll see a little later. And head down to the garden. Well, the garden is located down the pipeline road off to the side and is located a good distance away from the houses, the existing neighborhoods here in town. And frankly, I didn't think it was going to work to have something that far away where you had to make a conscious effort to load up your car with tools and whatever you're taking to work with, and then drive a good mile to get to the garden. But it has worked. We've got about a good 50 spaces in here for families to do some gardening. And we've got, you can see the shelter here in the foreground, which is kind of a central meeting place. It's covered with a coral vine, native plant to Florida, which brings in hummingbirds for its orange flowers. But that also serves as a meeting place, a place for the county extension will sometimes put classes on there. They'll have social events for the gardeners in the community to participate in. So it's a place where not only the families who have spaces can work, but also a place for folks to come. It's another kind of park, and a lot of people just come down to see what's growing and what's going on down here, and just enjoy the whole scene. But let's go in and take a little closer look. Inside the garden, there may be 50 spaces, a good 50, I guess, set up, and they range from long ones like in front of me here that are about 8 by 30 feet long, down to 4 by 8 spaces. So there's a little something for everybody. In fact, some folks have even just got potted plants here, and that's all they need to do. The gardeners have set up a little greenhouse there in the background where they get seedlings going, and they'll sell them for, I don't know what, a quarter a piece perhaps in little pots to try to cover some of the costs here. But gardeners can grow pretty much anything they want. When they sign up for a space, they get the bed, of course, and they get and free water. And they can grow flowers or crops. You can see some corn there, and I see peas growing here on the trellis. Looks like onions and squash in this bed, and even some carrots. So it's a little bit of everything, and it's actually kind of a good place for new residents to start. Let's go down a ways and look at this other bed, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. We're looking at the smaller beds here, the 4 by 8s, at this end of the garden. But what I've noticed is, and in fact, straight back there, you'll see roses blooming, and in front of that are some daylilies. These are plants. The daylilies came from Pennsylvania, I believe, and the roses someone else brought down from. He liked to grow roses back home, and he's doing it again here. So we're seeing pieces of home, I guess, that people bring. Here's the full shelter. It's a way, if you're in a new community, sometimes you need a little bit of home with you in order to get started. So we've got plants like the lilies and roses. There are crops here that are indigenous to Asia and to the Caribbean islands, and wherever people are coming from, they're bringing in a whole variety of different kinds of things, and it creates a great mix of cultures here in the garden, and also a little bit of home that comes along to your new home. The far end of the garden had been the children's garden. That was an experiment where we tried to have an area where children could informally play, I guess, while their parents were perhaps gardening, and if they didn't want to be involved in that. And so there were a lot of butterfly plants installed here, and there are edible plants installed. But it's now been converted into a different kind of growing operation, since this seems to work a little bit better, where we have some container plants in play. You can see the old schoolhouse that still is a playhouse for the kids, but it was kind of the centerpiece of the children's garden. Prior to the children's garden, it was a watermelon patch and a pumpkin patch, and this is kind of the experimental area, I guess, where different things are tried, and it's a common area where the gardeners can work on projects together. And maybe lastly is the storage shed. We're kind of looking at it through the fence. That's a 6-foot-high fence. We have deer, of course, around, so this is pretty effective at keeping the deer out of the garden. Turkeys can still fly in, and rabbits get through there with no problem. But the deer can turn things into a different place overnight. But gardeners can keep their tools in the storage shed. It's locked up, so they've got some security on that. But otherwise, and there's a parking area, of course, and that is our garden at Harmony.